Alright, I'm going to waste absolutely zero time. We're going to go into the Marincess Adventure deck profile. It's a pretty fun deck that has some sweet one-card combos and ends on a generally huge monster that's kind of like the rival Cybers. So in this case, this is an ideal setup going second. We have access to a one-card combo with Marincess Seahorse. You always want to see this in your hand most of the time. And we have access to Foolish Burial, which gets us our Adventure Engine. With Seahorse as well as our Adventure Engine, we can get game pretty damn easily, and we've opened a Nibiru, a Lightning Storm, and a Crossout Designator, which really helps us not only clear our opponent's board, but also insulate our own plays in addition to having Wandering Griffin Rider. So we're going to speed this up, and our opponent just does nothing. But anyways, our opponent just searches M-Pan and passes, which is very weird. But regardless, that's fine. We're absolutely gaming here, and we have access to almost entirely full combo plus the adventures. However, our opponent does Dimension Shifter us, which is unfortunate since this card over here has a graveyard effect where it can summon itself, which is really good because any Marincess monster that's a one-card combo plus an extender is usually completely full combo. But right now, we can't really access that, and we do use its graveyard effects, so we are going to have to pass this turn. So we're going to just set Mandarin, and we're going to set Crossout, and we're going to pass after popping this back row, which is a Gozen Match. To note, we can play through Gozen Match, since we can run it in this deck ourselves. However, in an adventure variant, it's not the most ideal. So our opponent beats over our Mandarin, it gets banished very sadly, because this card, again, has a graveyard effect. We would have ideally had it destroyed by battle instead of the graveyard, but we're still under Dimension Shifter. So then our opponent, unluckily, just doesn't have anything, so they just attack with the Eagle and pass, which is perfect. So we end up drawing Imperm, we don't care about that, and because it's a full of Wanderies, we don't care about Nibiru, so we can pitch Nibiru for cost for anything. We don't care about that. So we're going to go ahead and Foolish Burial. This opponent's going to then Ash us, which is perfectly fine, because we have access to Crossout Designator. So we select Ash Blossom, we declare it, and then we end up neutering that immediately. So we end up getting our Adventure plays. So we send Water Enchantress, we activate the effect in the graveyard to banish it, to then search our deck for a Rite of Air Then afterwards, we're going to go ahead and activate Rite of Air summoning a token, and then placing a Fateful Adventure into our Spell and Trap Zone, and then using Fateful Adventure to search for Griffin Rider and pitch the Nibiru, as I said, since we don't really need it. So then we're going to summon the Griffin Rider, and then after that, get a Draco back onto our token. Afterwards, we're going to then use the Draco back in order to bounce the Eagle in so that we can then get game pretty easily. So we're then going to use the Seahorse in order to then link into Blue Slug. The basic combo goes like this. You always want to link into Blue Slug and then get back a monster and then summon it. Then what you're going to do is then you're going to then link off the other monster, it's supposed to be a Marincess, into a Sea Angel. If you're able to get to this point, no matter what you do, this is perfectly fine. Then we're going to go ahead and search for a field spell of the deck, which is Battle Ocean. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and link these two monsters after activating the Battle Ocean off into a Splash Mage. If you don't know what this does, it's pretty simple. It basically just revives a Cybers monster from our graveyard. So we're going to go ahead and revive the Seahorse, and then after that, we're going to link these two off into another Marincess Link monster. This is going to be Coral Anemone, who then will lock us into waters, but then reborn a 1500 attack or lower monster from a graveyard, which is then going to be a Splash Mage. Then, lastly but not least, we're going to go ahead and use these two to link into our boss monster, Great Bubble Reef. Now, here's a couple things to note. If you want to go completely full combo, you ideally want to open Seahorse plus any extender, because then you're not just able to go ahead and link climb with Splash Mage and Coral Anemone, but then you can also use these Crystal Heart. So you can basically, ideally your basic combo is you summon Crystal Heart and a Link 2, and you link them off into Great Bubble Reef, having access to Battle Ocean, since any monster made using Crystal Heart will be unaffected by activated effects with Battle Ocean. However, we don't get access to that because our Mandarin, which is an extender, is banished, so that's a little sad. But anyways, we're going to equip 3 Link monsters to our Great Bubble Reef, to our, from the graveyard, with the field spell, and then, well, we could have swung for game, but our opponent just surrendered. So that's essentially like our basic one-card combo that isn't full combo, but it's still pretty fine, and the Adventure Engine. However, the next duel I'm about to show you is when we go full combo, and this is basically what the deck does. It basically makes a rival Cybers that also gets us a lot of additional advantage. So if this thing can load, and well, it's gonna show you the strength of this deck, which is Great Bubble Reef. Great Bubble Reef is a pretty good boss monster in my opinion. So we currently have opened pretty damn strong. We've opened Marincess Wave, which if we control a Marincess Link monster, we can target a card, we can imperm it, and if we control a Link 2 or higher Marincess, all our Marincesses are unaffected by opponent's card effects until the end of the turn, and it can activate itself from the hand if you control a Link 3 or higher Marincess, which is almost always going to happen. So we can either use Blue Tang or use the Seahorse, since Blue Tang can normal summon itself and then send the Seahorse from the deck to the graveyard, effectively doing the same thing. But since we've opened Pascalis, which lets us basically extend summoning Pascalis and Blue Tang, we can go completely full combo. But we cannot use Rite of Ares here because we're going to normal summon Pascalis and we're going to use its effect, which does not really synergize with the Adventure Engine, so we're going to forego that. We're going to then use Pascalis to summon the Blue Tang, and then Blue Tang is going to send the Seahorse from the deck to the graveyard. Then we're going to link the Blue Tang into the Blue Slug. This is kind of the same thing we did initially. We're then going to use the Blue Tang's effect in the graveyard to excavate the top 3 cards of our deck, and then add any Marincess from those 3 to our hand. And we have missed, but normally, if we didn't have the access to Wave already, we would have 100% taken Wave. So then we summoned the Seahorse, link it off into Sea Angel, the same shit. We're gonna then use its effect to get Battle Ocean. We're gonna then afterwards activate the Battle Ocean, and then everything's gonna get buffed. We're gonna link those 2 off into Splash Mage, and this is where things are different. Since we don't have any, normally we would always link it to Splash Mage, and there's nothing else on the field. So then we would summon something from the graveyard, link Splash Mage off and something else into the Coral Anemone, and then we're going to link into Great Bubble Reef. But since we actually have extra monsters, we're going to resummon the Pascalis and then link these 2 off into Crystal Heart. The reason why we're doing this is because if we link summon something using Crystal Heart, the Battle Ocean makes that monster unaffected by activated opponent's effects, which is precisely why Great Bubble Reef is really good, as long as you open any Marincess combo starter and an extender. So we end up then using these 2 to link off into Great Bubble Reef, and Great Bubble Reef is going to get a bunch of things equipped to it by the field spell, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to end our turn. And let's specifically talk about what we got here. We got 1 interruption here, and Great Bubble Reef, which is a huge kaiju, and what's really important is that every time a monster is banished, you can make it gain 600 attack, so 5200 attack, pretty freaking big. But once during either standby phase, you can banish a card from the graveyard in order to then draw one, which is really good for accumulating an advantage. So we're going to banish the Pascalis, our opponent ashes us, but we're unaffected by card effects, which is really funny. This has happened like 3 times. So we draw into Lightning Storm, and this gains a bunch of attack. Terraforming, fine, and this is Floowandereeze, which is perfect, since Wave is pretty decent, pretty good against that kind of deck. So anyways, uses Prosperity, that's fine, banishes a bunch of cards, and from the top, he absolutely misses. So Featherstorm, not great. Eaglin, okay, that's fine. You got Ghost Ogre, you know, Floowandereeze, Dreaming Town, Book of Moon. So this dude ends up adding the Eaglin, activates the field spell, then reveals Robina from the deck, and reveals the Eaglin, normal summons the Eaglin, and we're gonna go ahead and gain a bunch of attack over here. Robina then uses effect, but we don't care about chain blocking since we can already just negate the Eaglin. However, Book of Moon does end up happening, so whatever, it's fine. It's not really the worst. Anyway, so our opponent then adds the M-Pen, normal summons the Robina. This is basic Floowandereeze shenanigans, so afterwards, Mans is going to reveal Stormwinds, searching it, then use the M-Pen, searching for the trap. Actually, no, searches for the unexplored winds. Then normal summons the various edge of the Stormwinds and activates the unexplored winds and sets something. I don't know what it is. Anyways, we draw a Draco back, which is really stupid, but it's fine, it's whatever. We're gonna go ahead and then get rid of the Very Statue, flips up Vanity's Emptiness. I don't care. I can just keep this thing on. Anyways, you run over that monster and Vanity's Emptiness is then turned off. Then after that, we're gonna go ahead and use our Adventure Engine, which we're then going to then summon a token, get the Fateful Adventure. Then after that, we're going to use Fateful Adventure, get Modern Griffin Rider, and then we're going to pitch the Draco back. Since Draco back, when sent to the graveyard, can then equip itself to a monster, which is really helpful since we do not want to sacrifice Lightning Storm just in case our board gets wiped. So then we return the M-Pen with the Draco back, and then we summon the Griffin Rider, although at first I forgot that I already had Battle Phase, but that's fine. Then during their draw phase, we're going to go ahead and we're going to banish Splash Mage to draw one. Our opponent cross outs, which is weird. I don't know what they were accomplishing there. Banishes Tree, probably using it to get it outside of the deck, to then normal summon a monster and then retrieve it, which I guess is fine. But anyways, we gain a bunch of attack. This dude then after that tries to use the winds to mulligan some cards. We do not want them to actually play the game, so we're going to stop that. Activates the map, has nothing, passes. So then after that, we're going to go ahead and get Maxi. Maxi is garbage against, Flandries because they don't special summon, but whatever. We get a wave, however, our spells and trap zones are completely occupied, which is one issue with this deck. But anyways, so afterwards, we then just kind of proceed to attack for game. That's it. So we get Griffin Rider, we pitch the Lightning Storm, get the Griffin Rider, and well, that's it. Just attack with Bubble Reef. And so that is how Marincess works. Anyways, now let's go over the Marincess deck, as Farfa has coined it. So this is the deck profile. It's a little bit tight with space, and there are some things I might consider removing, but let's actually just go over it. So first of all, in terms of new cards, we do run the entire Adventure engine, including a copy of Foolish Burial, and we also run 2 copies of Small World. Now, to be honest, this card has never seen much utility. It only helps when it comes to searching out the, for example, the Water Enchantress, but otherwise, I honestly think you could just give this card a miss. So you could just replace this with another generic extender, so it's more likely to go into full combo, like a Silent Sea Nettle. This is a card I've seen It's Bradaz play in his Marincess deck profile that he made a few months ago, before the release of the adventure. So you could replace it with any generic extender. Anyways, then after that, we do run a generic crossout package. We run 2 crossouts, we run a single imperm from the bundle, we run Nibiru, we run Ash, and then we run our basic Master Duel tax cards. So we run 3 Ash Blossom and 3 Maxi, as is normally the case. You could cut Maxi to 2, I think it's fine, as long as you add another crossout. I think that's fine. We also do run a Gamma Seal, because Kaijus are great, even against this deck. This deck hates Kaijus with a burning passion, just like Ignisters when they summon the Arrival. Anyways, we also do run 2 Lightning Storms and 3 Pot of Desires. This deck is slightly inconsistent, so we want as much consistency as possible. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about the generic Link monsters. We run the Splash Mage, the Nightmare Unicorn, the Nightmare Phoenix, the Access Code Talker, and the Transcode Talker. There are cases where, if you do not use the Marincess Coral Anemone, you can instead just make a Transcode Talker to make Access Code, or you can make a Nightmare Unicorn into Access Code. Since this deck is very Link spammy, it is very possible, so it is a sort of little package you should consider running. And I run Nightmare Phoenix just because Zombie World shenanigans, they're pretty damn hard to deal with sometimes. Especially Baylor Drock negating and banishing stuff, so always run Nightmare Phoenix, in my opinion. It's a really good card. Anyways, we then run the standard, I don't know if this is standard, but these are the Marincess monsters I run. So this is Mandarin. If you control 2 more Mandarins while you have this in your hand or graveyard, you can then target a Link monster you control and summon it to a zone it points to, which is pretty damn nice if you link Mandarin off for a monster, and then you're in the future able to then summon Mandarin to then make Crystal Heart and then make the Bubble Reef with the effect of the Battle Ocean to make it unaffected. We also run 3 Seahorse. This is incredible. It's a 1-card starter. We run 3 Blue Tang. When it's normal summoned or special summoned, you can send a Marincess from deck to graveyard. This is always going to be Seahorse so that you can revive it with the Blue Slug. We run 3 Piscalis, which can extend essentially. If it's normal or special, you can special summon a Marincess from your hand in defense position except itself. And also, during the main phase, except the turn of sent to the graveyard, you can banish it from your graveyard and target a Marincess spell and trap in the graveyard, add it to your hand. Very helpful when it comes to recycling Marincess Wave, which I've talked about before. It's pretty good as a card. Otherwise, that's it for the Marincess line. It's a very small core, because they're kind of like Print Kits. A lot of them are 1-card combos. Of course, Piscalis is not, but if you open Blue Tang or Seahorse, you are completely fine. Mandarin's an extender, it's fine if you want, but the deck does not have a Searcher, which is a little bit not great. The closest they have to it is a Blue Tang. Anyways, we are also going to have 1 copy of Battle Ocean. We only run 1 copy of this, since its only use is to give immunity to anything summoned via Crystal Heart, and it also gives our monsters a lot of attack. And anyways, let's go over the Marincess line in our extra deck. We run 3 Blue Slug, a combo starter. You always want this to go off, and it is not ashable, which is great. We have 1 Sea Angel. It searches for 1 thing and 1 thing only, the Battle Ocean, so you want this card to go through. Next, we run the Double Coral Anemone. This card helps us extend and link climb into further things. If, for example, you do not have access to another monster and you can only summon the Bubble Reef without using Crystal Heart. We run one single Crystal Heart just because we need to use it to give our cards immunity. We run a single Splash Mage. It is required in our combo to basically make our Link 4s, or make a Link 3 in case we get interrupted, which we'll talk about. And this basically just summons a card from the graveyard, right? This is the Searcher, and it can also retrieve cards from the graveyard if it's sent to the graveyard. We already went over these cards. We have Marbled Rock, which can target a Marincess card in the graveyard and add to your hand. Kind of useful when it comes to recycling Wave, or if your opponent popped the Battle Ocean, you want to get it back in rotation. That's all A-okay. And this card can also then send a Marincess monster from your hand to the graveyard, and monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage, which is pretty damn nice if you want to stall out. So this card is a nice thing to end on if you aren't able to access the Great Bubble Reef in select circumstances. And finally, Great Bubble Reef, which is really powerful. Lets you draw during both standby phases, effectively allowing you to, over the course of the game, gain a +4, I believe, in card economy. It can be made with a 1-card combo, ideally is a 2-card combo. It also gets really goddamn big, and you can also then send a water from your hand to graveyard to summon a banished Marincess, which does help you sometimes in case your opponent has banished, let's say for example, a Coral Anemone or a Marbled Rock. So you can summon them again and then maybe even use them to make access code and transcode, which is pretty nice for OTKing, or even things like Nightmare Unicorn. And getting cards into your graveyard with the Marble Rock means that the blue slug is live to, for example, retrieve a blue seahorse, or to revive a blue Tang, which is pretty damn nice. And well, that's it. There's not really much else in this deck other than what I showed you, and I do run a single copy of Prosperity. The entirety of the extra deck is pretty necessary. However, in certain cases you might want to use Prosperity, but I would not suggest using it. I would suggest with Prosperity, maximum banish 3. That is the most you want to do. But anyways, yeah. By the way, if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it, by the way. We're aiming to get to 1,000 subscribers, which is a bit far of a goal, but I think we can do it, hopefully within the next couple of months. It would be really appreciated for you to subscribe, and more importantly, if you think this deck profile is really helpful for people who might want to learn this deck, if it includes you or a friend, go ahead and share it, and don't forget to like. I really appreciate it. Anyways, ciao.